And at 7 p.m., let me call to order the meeting of the Merrimack Planning Board for Tuesday, April 3rd. Let me appoint Nelson into a voting position in for Michael Redding. Let me remind everybody who's going to address the board to sign in on the clipboard that's on the end of the counter over here and make sure that microphone's turned on so the folks at home can hear you. By way of announcement, our next planning board meeting is April 17th, 2018, 7 p.m. in this room, Matthew Thornton room. I have no other announcements, and with that, Kelly, all by yourself today. First Planning and Zoning Administrator's report.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, that was easy.
That was an easy one. You wrote that yourself, or did Tim write that in the head?
I wrote that myself.
All right. Any questions for staff or members of the board?
Mr. Chairman, could I just remind members of the board that April the 28th is the OEP conference. I don't know how many of us have applied. I certainly have. But it's well worth, I sell it particularly to my two new colleagues, that it's a good opportunity to learn something about how the state views planning and the rest of it. And the town is rushing to pay for your admission fees, so Kelly would probably be delighted to hear from you.
There you go. Let me also throw a couple of announcements in that I neglected. Dan has been raised to being a full member from being an alternate member, and Neil is here for the first time as a full member of our board. And so welcome to Neil, and congratulations to Dan, full member. Recent appointments by the town council, so good for you guys. The other announcement that I want to make is that Nelson and I and a whole bunch of people not from Merrimack attended the National Regional Planning Commission's annual forum where they discussed the interrelationship between housing and jobs and community development. And one of the interesting things that came out of it is that there's some projections that say statewide New Hampshire is about 20,000 housing units short of current need. And at the same time, we've probably got more than 1,000, probably 1,200 now, housing units approved here and ready for shovels into the ground. So it's a big discussion around the state to figure out how you keep young people here, and obviously having some place to live is important. And the connection, I don't know which is the chicken and which is the egg, but the housing and the jobs and the people all sort of have to coexist in the same place at the same time. And a lot of towns have done slow growth ordinances and limitations that have really kind of bottlenecked the development of housing units. So it was an interesting discussion. For those of you that didn't go, I'm not sure whether you got the invitation or not. Hopefully you did. I think you all would have.
I did. I had another meeting that conflicted with it.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I understand. It's a good chance to meet some of our very capable and helpful folks from the National Regional Planning Commission that have helped us with some of our maps. And Ben Frost was there from the Housing Finance Authority, and John Stabile from the Stable Companies, and a couple of other people that were good to know. Russ Tebow, who does the economic analyses and who is responsible for the chart that we've used a zillion times that establishes how many kids you can expect by a housing unit. Apartments, mobile homes, actual freestanding homes. And since that particular chart always raises some controversy, it could have been a good chance if anybody was interested to go to the source and see what he thinks of it. Anyway, that was a good presentation. They do it every year at about this time, buffet dinner, but the rest of it's nice. And I don't have any other announcements. If there's no more questions for staff or other things to talk about, let's move on to our agenda. Our first item on the agenda is My Box New England. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me also announce that the two Charles Morgan agenda items, 4 and 5, have requested a continuance. So if anybody's here for those or here to talk about those, you shouldn't expect to need to stay. Those will be continued to a future date. What's the date, Kelly, that they asked for?
April 17th.
April 17th. So they'll be at our next meeting. Okay, back to the agenda. My Box New England LLC is the applicant and TW Bridge Associates LLC is the owner. Request for an extension of final approval of a site plan for the construction of a 39,100 square foot self-storage facility with associated site improvements. The parcel is located at 101 Herrick Street in the C2 General Commercial, I-1 Industrial, and Aquifer Conservation Districts. tax map 3D2, lot 20, and the item was conditionally approved at the October 3rd, 2017 Planning Board meeting. Kelly, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Nope, you can just hear the presentation.
Excellent. All right. Introduction, and then let us have it.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Chad Brannon. I'm a civil engineer with Fieldstone Land Consultants. I'll be representing My Box New England this evening. We are before you tonight seeking a extension of our approval that we received on October, I think it was October 3rd or 4th of 2017, October 4th. Was the letter anyways. And it's our understanding that there hasn't been any changes in the local ordinance since our approval, but just to give the board an update, since receiving the approvals from you, we did receive a state wetlands permit in November of 2017. We submitted to the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, and unfortunately it's taken them about 4 months to get back to us. We've spent the last month in communication with them. They are in support of the project. We're just working on finalizing some details. But over this time, we have addressed, I believe we've addressed anyways, all of the other conditions. We've worked with the fire department on addressing their concerns, the wastewater department, Merrimack Village District, and we've also we made a formal submission early in January, I think on January 10th, that had a response letter to all of CLD's comments. So we're in a good place with the project. We're just finalizing some issues before the Department of Transportation, and I think once we finish those items up, we'd make another formal submission to the town, and addressing all of the conditions or any outstanding items at that time. We're simply asking for 6 months just as a safety precaution. It's obviously taken much longer than we were anticipating to get to this point. So that's really it. We haven't made any substantive changes to the plans, just addressing local and state reviews.
Thanks, Chad. So the DOT, you just need a driveway curb cut permit for them?
We actually don't have a driveway curb cut because we're taking access off of Herrick Street. But what happened is during the Public Works review of the project, they've asked us to reach out to DOT because we are extending some of their drainage through the project. If you recall, there's 2 culverts that actually discharge onto the property, and we're extending those through the site. So we were in communication with DOT. It just has taken a long time. So I guess to answer your question, the Public Works Director has asked for us to get a sign-off from the Department of Transportation, just with them essentially acknowledging that and approving of the work that we're proposing as it connects to their system.
Okay. So it's not really a permit, but it's a sign-off on some things?
Exactly.
When you extend that drainage, are you going to be responsible for keeping it up, or the DOT, or is that part of what the discussion with the DOT is about? That's
a great question. That's part of what the last conversation was with DOT. They want to maintain the culvert that exists, and we're essentially installing a manhole at the end of each one of the culverts that comes onto the property. From the manhole through our property, it will be my client's responsibility for maintenance. That's the DOT's preference, and that's apparently how they've handled that in the past.
So if you're just catching water that comes out of their pipe, why do you need their approval? You haven't touched any of their structures.
We haven't, and they actually don't have drainage easements on our property. It's really just a formality and
Okay.
kind of
So
making sure
Dawn
that
said
there's
so you got to go.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we have to address the local comments, so that's
All right.
what we're doing.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, could I therefore make a motion that we grant the My Box a 6 months extension, if that's enough for you?
Is there a second for Alistair's motion? Second by Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed? Any abstaining? So that is, let's see, we're 6 tonight, so that's 5-1-0 for your 6-month extension.
Thank you very much.
There you go. Thank you. Good to see you, Chad. Okay, the next two items, well, let's do them one at a time. They're both proposing continuance, but item 4, Charles Morgan, applicant, and 526 DW LLC as the owner. Review for acceptance and consideration of a waiver of full site plan review for the addition of 76 outdoor vehicle storage parking spaces for use between November 1st and through April 1st. The parcel is located at 526 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial and Aquifer Conservation Districts and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 5D2 Lot 1, and the item is continued from the February 6, 2018 Planning Board meeting. I would substantively recuse myself from voting on any of their matters, but I don't mind facilitating the vote for a continuance. I don't think that
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we have a request, as we have a request from the applicant for an extension to April the 17th, that we grant that continuance till that date at 7 p.m. in this room with no further notice to abutters.
Is there a second for Alistair's motion? Second by Nelson. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just one thing I'd like to point out. One of the directions that we gave to this applicant.
I'm getting a signal that your mic's not on.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, one of the directions we gave to this applicant was that these two items 4 and 5 on tonight's agenda be combined, that we have one site plan that will encompass both of the changes that he's requesting by these two items. I just wanted to reinforce that as I go forward and say I agree with the extension, but it should come to us as one item.
Okay. It may be that it started out on an agenda as 2 that got continued as 2, so we may end up with one piece of paper as a plan, but 2 agenda items. I don't know, Kelly, is that?
As far as I know, they are supposed to be submitting it as one plan,
Okay.
as you requested. But
Okay.
I believe it was just carried over as an agenda item
Yeah.
as 2.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I will abstain, so that's 501 with me abstaining from voting on it. Item 5 on the agenda is Charles Morgan as the applicant and 526 DW Highway LLC as the owner. Review for acceptance and consideration of final approval for a site plan to construct a 21,069 square foot single-story storage facility and a 2-bay auto detailing shop. The parcel is located at 526 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial and Aquifer Conservation Districts and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 5D2 Lot 1, and this item is also continued from our February 6, 2018 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, ditto, but I'd like to make a proposal that, in view of the request from the applicant, we grant a continuance on this matter to April the 17th at 7 p.m. in this room with no further notice to abutters.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Nelson. Any discussion?
Same comments as before.
Same comments as before. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? I will abstain, so 501. Kelly, is it appropriate for us to take any official action to merge these 2 items? Could the board vote to merge them or whatever, just so that they don't have to appear as 2 separate items anymore?
Not sure if that's necessary.
Okay. Well, we'll take it
but-
up next time if it is.
I know that we've made the applicant aware that that's your
Yeah.
preferred.
Yep.
So.
I just want the notice to the public to match what it is that we're going to do. And
Okay.
I suppose that listing it as 2 items doesn't really change that. I think it is both things under consideration. If we have to vote to merge them, we'll take that up on the 17th, I suppose. Okay, moving on from that. Item 6 on the agenda is Amy Lynn Whitaker as the applicant and Stanley and Teresa LaFrere. I'm not going to get that right. You'll have to help me with that in a second. Owners, review for a home occupation permit to allow for a massage therapy and wellness business. The parcel is located at 31 Bedford Road in the R1 Residential and Aquifer Conservation Districts and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 6D, lot 240. I'm sure your name is easy to say, but I'm sorry for messing it up. Please help me pronounce it correctly.
Well, my name is Amy Whitaker.
Oh, okay.
The owner's name is Stanley LaFerrier.
Okay, can you touch the button on your microphone? I don't think it's on.
Okay, sorry.
There you go. Perfect, thank you. Sign in, and when you're, I'm sorry, Kelly, is there anything that we need to know before you hear from the applicant?
No, Mr. Chair, we can just hear their presentation.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, after you've signed in and you're settled in, tell us what you're proposing.
Well, I'm the owner-operator of New Beginnings Wellness Center LLC, and what I want to have is a home business where I provide massage therapy, Reiki, which is energy work, electrolysis, which is permanent hair removal, and meditation training.
Okay. I see from the information we have that you're going to be the only employee. There aren't any others that will help you run your business. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you're proposing that you'll have 3 clients per day. Are you predicting that as an average or as a limit or?
Right now, I probably average more around 3 to 4 clients a week. I'm hoping to get up to about 3 clients, an average about 3 clients a day.
Okay. The number it may or may not be important to the board's decision, but I want to make sure that you're getting what you need approved or considered by the board. So usually when you have a number like this where it says 3, that can be interpreted to be a limit. And then if 2 years from now business is going well and you want to book 5 people on Tuesday, you could be out of compliance with this. So I would rather make sure you ask for what you think you might need. And then if there's neighbors that are considering it, they'll speak up and we'll all consider it. But I don't want to put you in a position where a couple of years from now you're like, oh, do I book another client? Shh, don't tell. Or go before the board, you know. So if you think it could be more than 3, or if you want to have us understand that 3 is an estimate and an average and not necessarily a limit, let's talk through that a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
What do you think?
I would think maximum for a day would be 5. But average throughout the week, if I average it for a week, it would probably average right around 3 a day.
Okay.
So a total of what,
Yep.
probably 15 to 20 clients a week.
So our only concern is the traffic, the coming and goings of people.
Correct.
So how many you do per week? I hope you have a successful business and you have as many clients as you can find room to take care of. So really kind of looking at it on a daily basis, or even whether you would have overlapping clients that show up at the same time or whether they would be separate. And that would affect whether you need 2 parking spaces or 1. Those are really the kind of issues that we're looking at. So I'm happy that you shared the information about how many you'd average per week. I think for our viewpoint, let's just talk about per day and figure that. So if you're saying you think that 5 per day is enough for you to plan on, that I think is something appropriate for the board to consider and decide what that means. Does that make sense?
Yes, it'd be a total of probably 5 per day.
Okay.
Because I am retired from the state of New Hampshire, so I'm not looking to try to kill myself. Currently, I have 2 parking spaces. It is accessed, the driveway coming in is actually owned by a Roy Martel. But there is a prescriptive easement on it. That has been used for over 50 years to access the house.
Okay. So you've got some pictures and drawings that you've submitted. Use those to help me understand your driveway and what you mean by what's your parking spaces and all of that, if you can.
Certainly.
When you say you have 2 spaces, is that the total for your residence? And so you've got to put your vehicle there plus your clients, or are those 2 that are available just for your client? How's that work?
Those are 2 that are available for the clients. As far as for our residents, there's actually another driveway that comes around the back that goes to a garage that's underneath the house.
Okay, so this isn't space for you to park. These are just for your clients.
Correct.
Okay. So it looks like in this one I have with 2 pictures on the same page, there's a lot of gravel area around that. That's private property that's part of the access to someone else's lot? How does that work?
Try and see the one that has 2 pictures. I think I have the same one.
I think I see from the satellite picture, there's some Looks like a gravel pit or something abutting your property. Is that what that is back there?
Correct.
Okay,
And-
so the access to that gravel pit goes right by the side of your house.
Correct, and that's what's owned by Mr. Roy.
Okay. And then your parking for your couple of clients are there. You've got appropriate easements to be able to drive across there to use that space. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And your own parking doesn't go through there. It goes off of Bedford Road. Is the easement that you have something that the department has record of, Kelly?
I'm not aware if we have a record of it or not.
Okay.
I didn't see it in Robert's memo, so.
Okay, so we may have to get a copy of that and have it submitted to the town just so that it's on record, because your clients can only access your property by crossing someone else's land to get there.
correct. I don't believe there is anything in writing. This was something that was a verbal agreement for Stanley LaFurrier, the owner of the property, to utilize back, like I said, it was over 50 years ago. He's been using it continually throughout the years, and according to New Hampshire state law, after 20 years of continued use, it becomes a prescriptive easement where it doesn't have to be in writing.
Well, it can, it doesn't always, but it
Okay.
can. Do you have a good relationship with the guy that runs the gravel pit?
Actually, the other day he stopped in and he stated that he didn't want anybody to use this driveway at all.
Okay. So he's going to dispute your ability to have your clients come and drive across there.
Correct. Which would mean that I'd have to have them come around the back of the house.
Okay, so let's talk about parking on your other driveway.
Okay.
How much space you got over there for people to use?
Enough to probably park between 5 and 7 vehicles.
Okay. It certainly looks like that from the satellite pictures viewpoint. And it looks like it's well off the street. Is your other driveway unpaved gravel as well?
Correct.
Okay. So I think that what we would have to do, if the board is willing to approve it and consider this, is edit your application a little bit to show that that's where your customers are going to park. We could consider and vote on allowing people to cross somebody else's property, but we need that property owner's approval. Sounds like you're not going to get it. So better if we don't go down that path and try to consider what would happen if we approve something that the owner of the property won't allow or anything like that. And I hope you guys end up with peaceful neighbors and you don't end up a big battle over this, whatever that's about. But are you going to have a sign? You are going to have a sign. I see that drawn in one of your plans. Is there a sign there already?
Yes, there is.
How big is the sign?
It is 2 square feet.
2 square feet? Has that been approved by or considered by the department for approval?
I submitted it with the application.
Okay. Well, the sign's already there.
Correct.
Okay. Have you been in business already, or?
Yes,
Okay. So we're making sure we get into compliance when we weren't already. Okay.
correct.
It says that you've got about the right square footage, 124 for your business out of your entire 1,840 square foot home, so that's less than 25%. Sounds like you're using one room for this?
Correct.
Okay. 8 a.m. to noon and 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday through Wednesday. The Saturday through Wednesday, the hours that you have are a pretty good broad schedule of hours. The statement in your proposal of specific days ends up working a lot like that number of cars that could come per day. If you say Saturday through Wednesday and we vote on that, that means that Friday and Thursday are no good.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to be careful and understand, do you mean that, and do you want us to vote on that, and then you can't have any clients on Thursday and Friday?
Yes.
Or do you think there's a possibility that you might someday want a client on Thursday or Friday?
No, I'd say that that's good.
Okay. As long as you're confident. So we've got your plan and the information's on. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Go on, Osmond.
Oh,
Go ahead,
okay.
guys.
I'm having trouble finding the property lines that are on the map that we were given. In relation to the gravel pit, is your property on the same lot as the gravel pit?
No.
So there's a property line somewhere that Doesn't show, the red.
Yeah, it's the
outline,
red line on the satellite.
That's her property,
Yeah, that's the outline of 6D 240.
but it doesn't seem to have frontage on Bedford Road?
That's certainly the way that it's drawn, but I don't know why the easement for Bedford Road goes wider and narrower through there. Kelly, can you
Yeah.
offer any insight into? And it may be that just the GIS system has a funkiness in it.
It may be.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's the GIS, because that is their driveway on Bedford Road there.
So the area that's cut out and looks like the easement just gets wider through that area, is that reflected in some earlier deed as being an easement dedicated to the town, or where does that come from?
Mr. Chairman, if my memory serves me rightly, I believe that's deeded to the town because there's drainage across there. Because I think this has come up before when they were talking about the church. I think there is a drainage thing that trundles across there, which is, I think, part of the problem. I'm only, that's my vague memory, but I do think there is an issue that frontage is dedicated to the town because of drainage.
Do you know or happen to remember where the drainage came from? Or
No,
Yeah, it would have to come from the road, if anything.
it's coming from the road, and I think I'm thinking because when we did the development, which is 6233 with those houses there was some issue with drainage, and I seem to remember something going across the front of this road, but I couldn't swear to it.
I know
Okay,
as we come
well-
up the back driveway and heading towards Bedford Road, right on the right-hand side, there is the drainage grate right there.
Okay.
Yes, I think there is.
Helps.
I seem to think there's some.
Could you tell me where that is again? I missed. Say.
If you're leaving from the property in the back driveway and you come to where Bedford Road is and and it's right to the right-hand side of the driveway.
Okay.
When you
There
say
is.
the back driveway, the one that you
Yeah.
use for your residence now?
Yes,
And the ones we're going to put your clients into?
correct.
Okay.
But it is part of Lot 6D 241. Is that correct? Is that how I understand?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think it's actually. You might be right, but I don't know but I know there's an access way for drainage in that area. I do
Yeah.
remember that.
I'm sorry. Okay, that might be, but it's part of 241. That's what I
No,
was.
not if you look.
Well,
if you look at the lines now, there's a line which
Oh, okay.
crosses it. I don't think it belongs to anybody. Or maybe
Well-
it's there, but it's deeded to the town.
Yeah, everything belongs to somebody. We just got to figure out who. The one thing that I would caution everybody on is that we're not looking at an engineered plan. We're looking at the GIS overlaying a satellite, and those things are fraught with quirks like this
Yeah.
that are not necessarily easy
Okay.
to explain, nor do they reflect what anybody ever deeded to anybody or drew on an actual plan.
Okay. Tell me about the gravel pit. Is that being operated now?
No, it is not.
It is not. Okay. Okay, it shouldn't be. There's a long history that goes with this gravel pit that I won't go into, but because I think this is separable from it. It looks like there's two entrances. Looks like they made a driveway that trespasses on lot 242 as well as the straight-in driveway. Is that the actual case out there, or?
I have no idea. I know the property right next to ours, heading towards the highway,
Yeah,
is owned by Mr. Roy's son.
by Mr. Who?
By the property owner of the gravel pit,
Yeah,
it's his son that owns the next house.
Okay.
So 6242 is the son of 6241. So they may sort of permit each other to do some things. When you say the gravel pit isn't operating right now, do you mean that it hasn't been operated for months or years, or do you mean it's wintertime and nobody's in there?
It hasn't been operated since I've been living there, which has been about 2 years now, a little over
Okay.
2 years.
longer than that. It was supposed to have been discontinued.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to get to.
No, I understand, and I know that our
Yeah.
satellite photographs are never current, but
Yeah,
if it was unoperated for 2 years. There should be some scrub growth
Greenery
and
on
things.
it. Yeah,
Some green in the picture.
yeah.
Google picture shows that.
Google does show some green in the picture. These satellites from the GIS system are years and years and years old, so that doesn't, it's not a surprise.
Okay,
Further questions, Nelson?
I have nothing further. I just wanted to verify that the gravel pit wasn't still operating, and I think, thank you.
Thanks. Neil?
Yeah, I was.
Touch it again.
So you said if you had to consider putting the parking in on the rear lot, you say that there's room for the 5 to 7 cars.
Yes.
How far off of the residence would those parking spots be? If you had to put, are they going to be right up against the building, or are they going to be further off?
They would probably be about, the closest one to the building would be about 10 feet away from the building.
Okay, and then they would go further out from there.
Yes.
The reason I asked, I was just has there been any consideration for adequate lighting in that area, for the parking area?
Is, if I had to, since it sounds like that's where they'll be put, I'll put some sort of like motion activated lighting or something out there so people would be able to see.
Sounds good.
Mr.
Further
Chairman.
questions?
Sorry.
No, thank you.
I don't know if you noticed and you did get a copy of the letter that Kelly put together. You apparently have got a ramp leading up to the house. That ramp, unfortunately, doesn't comply with the ADA in terms of width and angle, as I understand it. We can't force you to have a ramp, but if you're going to have a ramp, it has to be compliant. I know that sounds a silly thing to say. So I think you need to talk with well, actually it'll be the building officer, and Kelly will help you do that. So that you either have a wider and the right ramp, or you rip the ramp up. It's your call, but you can't have a non-compliant, non-ADA compliant ramp. I suspect you probably want the ramp because it's probably handy for people on wheelchairs and things, in which case you have got to do have a little bit of work done to make it compliant. Kelly will help you with the details.
Okay, thank you.
You understand what that is? That's all that? Okay.
I just had a quick question. I must have missed it. Are you the property owner or do you rent?
I rent.
Okay.
Yes.
And the current owner is okay with you doing the
Yes.
business in there?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need any kind of documentation from that?
Generally, yes, and that's why it sort of is introduced as being an applicant and an owner, and the department has generally already dealt with making sure that there are appropriate signatures on that. So when our agenda item says that combination of applicant and owner, correct, Kelly? Got that?
Correct, we have the appropriate signatures on the application.
Okay. Thank you. Remind me again, other than the massage therapy, you said that you're going to do electrolysis, and then any other treatments or therapies, or tell me what's going on in there that you have for business-wise?
It's massage therapy. Part of the massage therapy is Reiki, which is a energy work.
Okay.
I also do meditation training for those that are interested in that, and then the electrolysis.
Okay, sounds good. I was just thinking, looking out for things that would use water or products that would end up in the drains, and you don't have any of that kind of thing going on at all, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Other comments or questions by members of the board? So if it's the will of the board to consider an approval, we should be careful to describe what we've changed about the parking. She's agreed to add a little bit of lighting for Neil's comment, and anything else so that we can get these edits done and in the record. Kelly, have you got a sense of what other than parking we've talked about, or if anything?
It sounds like you want some type of lighting for the new parking area.
Yeah, I think the motion censored
Okay.
residential, something is fine. Other
And-
comments or questions?
Could we first make a motion to accept this, Mr. Chairman, legally?
Yeah, let's follow the rules, huh? Rules, schmools.
You don't have to.
Yes, that's what I was thinking with a home occupation. But we should open the floor for any public testimony or abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in, if there are any. There are none. So we've met our obligation for a public hearing, and then We have a recommendation for staff that we grant final approval with any conditions the board deems appropriate. So, move the parking over to the other driveway, put up a motion sensor light, anything else?
And change it to maximum of 5.
5 cars per day, everything else in their proposal?
5 applicants, 5
Customers, yes,
customers, not
yeah,
cars. Yes.
Yeah.
yes, you got it right, absolutely. Anything else?
And following
The
up with
ramp.
the ADA compliance ramp.
Following up with the ADA compliance ramp. We got them all? Is
Got 'em
someone
now.
willing to make a
Yep.
motion to the effect of,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant the applicant the approval for running a
home occupation?
home occupation business at this site, subject to the notes from Robert Price dated March 28th, and the additional notations that we've granted this evening.
I thought the notes were from Kelly, not from Robert.
Oh, sorry, from Kelly. Sorry, I beg your pardon. From Kelly.
That, Robert on there is me. Is there a second by Nelson? Any further discussion? Any questions from you about what we're proposing? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 600. So you have your approval. You'll get some communication from the staff about the various technical things that we talked about, so you can get those in order, and then you're all set.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good luck with your business.
Good luck.
Okay, back to the agenda. Item 7 on our agenda is Lindsay Morash, Chasing Nirvana Yoga LLC as the applicant and Hotel at Daniel Webster LLC as the owner. Review for acceptance and consideration of waiver of full site plan review to permit a yoga studio open to the public and not limited to hotel guests. The parcels located at 248 Daniel Webster Highway in the I-1 Industrial and Aquifer Conservation Districts, tax map 3D2, lot 5-1. Kelly, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Just to note that this was, came up through enforcement action, so this is currently happening already.
Okay. So when you're ready, introduce yourself and tell us what you got going on.
I'm Lindsay Morash, and I own Chasing Nirvana Yoga.
Touch the button on your microphone, Lindsay. I don't think it's on.
Yeah.
And bring it a little closer to you, too. We can hear you well, but the folks at home can't when the microphone isn't
Sure.
getting you.
Okay, so I'm Lindsay Morash. I own Chasing Nirvana Yoga. Chasing Nirvana is an on-site wellness company. We work with landlords to bring wellness to their tenants, or in this case, residents. Diversified funding brought us in at the residences at Daniel Webster to create a yoga studio where we offer yoga, Pilates, and bar currently.
Okay. How many clients are you getting from the hotel and how many from elsewhere?
So far, I haven't seen any from the hotel yet. We are promoting the classes with marketing materials and table tents and things like that. But we're still waiting on our first participant from that avenue, and everybody else has come from the community.
Okay. How many people do you take in a class at one time?
We can take up to 25, can fit. 15 is comfortable, and so far we're seeing about 2.
Okay. One of the concerns or the questions that I have is, as you're drawing in clients from outside the residence, is where are they parking?
They're parking in the hotel's space.
The hotel has like 2 spaces at the front of that place, and there's really not much there.
There's somebody from the hotel here. Rob, do you want to maybe answer that?
I mean, I know 2 is probably, I'm pushing the limit, but come on forward to a microphone.
You gotta come up.
Yeah, come on forward, sit over there. I know, those were all the residents, I mean, that's where all the people who live there are staying.
Not parking up here because the studio's in here.
Come on.
Yeah, sit down, sit down.
You know,
Sit down, sign in, introduce yourself, and then when you're ready to talk some details, let's talk some details.
It's in this corner here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Robert Damiano. I'm a representative of Diversified Funding and the residents of Daniel Webster.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about where the yoga is going to go on the site and where you're going to park people and.
So we had what was previously called a meeting room in the property, one of our buildings, and basically it sat empty. So we were basically just trying to think of ways we could add some amenities for our guests, and we happened to come up with the idea for doing yoga classes. We thought it hasn't been that long, but we thought our guests would be something that they would enjoy and take advantage of, and that's how we came across Lindsay, and here we are. Parking, I know she said she's only had 2 people per class, but during the day, when her classes are typically held, we do not have a parking issue. I think you do see maybe 2 spots out front there. There's probably more like 5 or 6. However, if you go around up and around in around the property, there's behind the first building, there's about 15, 16 spaces, and then you can go up around the building. There's spots around the back. Parking is also around the back building on the roadway that comes out between us and the Quality Inn. There's spaces there, and again, in the middle of the lot, there's another lot where there's several spaces, and all the way along the back of our property along the highway is all lined spaces. So
You think you got it up?
we're confident we do.
Okay.
If she has, if she did have 25 people coming for a class, you might have to drive around a bit, but for right now, I certainly think we could accommodate 15 people to a class, and our hope was that some of those people would be
Residents
staying
who
with
don't
us,
need
and
it,
they
yeah.
would already be there.
Okay. So in building 20, which is highlighted on this plan, can you point out which room you're going to be using for this?
Yeah.
Do you want me to come up?
If you can, yeah, sure.
So building 10. So it's this little space right here. So you come up the path to the parking lot, and it's right, there's an exterior door on your left, and we're right in here.
Okay. So what she was indicating on the sidewalk where it says building 20, you see a sidewalk extending right into the L of the building, and it's the small space right below the words building 20.
Mr. Chairman, I'm missing building 20 somehow.
That's,
It's on the, you can look at the
Which
small
one? On the
map.
small map, okay.
It's difficult to read, but it does say building 20, and I think it's highlighted in yellow.
There is something highlighted in
Well,
yellow.
that's what's there.
yeah.
Okay,
That's
I got
building
it.
20.
On the other
Okay.
plan, building 20 is the one that doesn't have any interior partitions drawn, and it says
Okay.
proposed
Okay.
addition.
I'm with you now? Yes.
Okay.
And then where is this yoga room going to be, or somewhere in that building?
On the
And we-
small map where you see the word building 20 highlighted, it's
Yes,
directly below the word building.
okay, got it.
I thought the conference room was further into the corner of that building.
Did you have more than one conference room?
No, not in that building. It's just the front corner. If you
Yeah, I think it's all the way in the front corner here. I don't think it's back by the yellow mark.
I don't know.
look,
Yeah,
Yeah,
come on, take a
please.
look. Here you go. Just put an X in it and we'll pass it around. Okay. Okay.
it is at the front corner of that building 20, down the 3rd floor.
Okay. So below the B in building.
Oh, so it is back
That's
there. Okay, my bad. I've only been in it once. Town had a meeting there before you guys took over.
Yeah, it was often used for conferences and businesses. They used to have meetings there as well. We
Okay.
didn't
Which
have a lot
one-
of
which
luck
one
getting
counts?
use out of it, and
Two X's,
that means, so.
the top X.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So we know where it is on the site. You think that the parking is fine. How long you been doing it already so far?
In this space, 2 months.
2 months? Okay. So at least with respect to the folks that you've had come so far, you haven't had any parking issues or problems.
No.
How are you letting people in the community know that it's there?
So we just have 2 roadside flags because I was told there was no more room for signage. So those, you guys noticed them, so they're doing their job.
I didn't personally.
But staff did, or somebody
Someone's
did.
noticing them. And then we're doing Google AdWords and Facebook and social media.
Okay. I think that the reason your flags got noticed is probably got to do with making sure you're complying with whatever the sign regulations are. And it may be that on the hotel sign, I know that the fig and the olive used to be in the front of there, and they're not there anymore. Maybe there's some space for that. Your sign to be where theirs was, or on that post or something like that, in a way that's compliant with what they need. Once you put up more signs as the flags, whether those are temporary, where they fit in the ordinance is a giant sand pit, so leave that alone. I don't have any other questions of the applicant. I know we've got to consider whether to accept the application for review. We certainly seem to have enough information for that if someone was willing to make such a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept this matter for review.
Is there a second for Alistair's motion?
I'll second.
Second by Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? 600 to accept it for review. Are there any abutters or citizens who wish to weigh in on the application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. More discussion between the board and the applicant on any particular aspects of this. The applicant has asked for a waiver of full site plan review, which is normally something that we would look favorably upon in a situation where there are no changes to the site. There's no construction going on or anything like that, but obviously that's up to the board to decide.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant a waiver of full site plan based on the limited area that the application pertains to, and using the criteria that specific circumstances relative to the, well, it's not really subdivision, the land, relative to the spirit of the site that indicate the waiver will carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Excellent. Is there a second for Alistair's motion? Second by Nelson. Any discussion? All in favor of granting a waiver of full site plan review, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? 600 for the waiver of full site plan review. So I think it's a good use of some unused space, and I hope that it does entertain your customers. I support it. I think anything that you do that makes it a little bit more interesting to be around there and some amenities for folks seems like a good thing. I had originally thought that you were going to put it in that front building where the fig and the olive was, and there really is tight parking around there.
No.
But being out in the back does change that quite a bit. I assume that the building is ADA accessible if anybody with a wheelchair wants to come to the yoga class, and or anybody with any mobility limitations could be able to get in there.
Yes.
It is, yes. We have several rooms actually on that floor that are handicap compliant, so this,
Okay.
it's,
So the hotel part of that already drove that decision
Exactly.
and that question, hotel room part of it. Okay. Did you have in your proposal hours of when these classes were going to be?
I believe so, but the first class in the morning starts at 9, and then we have lunchtime classes and early evening classes.
Okay. What time are your early evening classes?
5:30.
5:30. So at 5:30, you may have a situation where you're parking and the residents they're trying to get in at the same time, but I assume that you've got to make that work, because if you can't park, then nobody's going to come to your class. Do people come and pay like for each class, or do they pay for a month, or how does that work?
They can do either. They can pay for a class pack where they get 5 or 10 classes. They can pay for a drop-in, or they can pay monthly.
Okay. Other comments or questions? What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I propose that we grant final approval to the young lady, Miss Lindsay Morris, for the Chasing Nirvana Yoga Studio, based on the letter of Robert Price dated March 28, 2018. As long as those items are addressed, I think we are fine.
Second for Alistair's motion. Second by Nelson. Kelly, we're leaving anything out that we need to address, or are we all set?
As long as you included the conditions of Robert's memo, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, he did.
I didn't
Yeah,
hear
did.
you, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Just
Yeah.
that the conditions in Robert's memo are
I've
included in
said
the approval.
she's got to apply,
Okay.
get those
Okay.
conditions straightened out.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of granting conditional final approval, subject to the conditions in the memo, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed. Any abstaining? So 5-1-0 for your approval. So you're all set. You'll get some communication from the department about some of the specifics you've got to do, and good luck with your business. I hope you do well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8 on our agenda is discussion and possible action regarding other items of concern. I believe this is, no, I don't believe, this is our last meeting before the town's election, where we intend to display some maps of our DW Highway sidewalk inventory and to collect some feedback from folks. I understand from Nelson that all 3 of the gigantic maps have been deposited with the department. You guys are making copies of the things. I've got couple of hundred pens that I bought at Staples so that people could fill out the form. So I can supply those to you, and when people, so I understand that Mike is going to be responsible for one of the sites. I'll be responsible for one of the sites, and
I'm trying to help with the other one.
to be able to at least set it up and then
Yeah.
monitor it as you can.
I would add, Mr. Chairman, the banners, which are also in the hand, currently in the Community Development Office, which I got printed at Staples.
Okay,
They're nice big banners to go on. They're 4 foot wide,
thank you for doing that.
12 inches, something like that.
What did we decide, feedback on sidewalks or something like that? That's what they said?
Well, I actually used the exact words of Nelson's. Your suggestions for town sidewalks is exactly what it says.
Okay. So we'll collect up some information that we can use to judge how we might form a sidewalk plan going forward. Or maybe that'll be information that says we shouldn't do any of that stuff, if that's what people's opinions are. So it sounds like we're all prepared for that. I'm going to be at the middle school. Mike, or you are going to be at Master Cola?
I'm going to go to I'm going to St. John Newman's, and I'll be there on the Tuesday night to get it set up.
And Mike's got Master Cola.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tuesday night to take it down?
Tuesday night it's over.
Is it?
Voting is all day Tuesday.
It's all day Tuesday. Well, I'll be there on Monday night to set it up.
Okay.
Whatever it is, I will be there.
Right.
But I'll be.
What time Monday night?
You tell me. I'm finished.
He doesn't do that. Go talk to Lynn. Elections are
Who
her
should I
business.
talk to?
I don't know.
All right, I'll get hold of Lynn and find out.
Yeah,
I will
Lynn will
organise it because I can't be there at start. I unfortunately will be shunting kids around.
What time do you think you would be there?
I can be there any time after 4:30.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
I get home.
Well, I don't know if they'll be the town will probably be setting up that evening, but
All
the
right,
staff's
well,
not
I
necessarily
will
there
look
in the evening. That's
I'll
why I was
double
trying-
check with Lynn to make certain.
okay.
But
Sounds good.
I'll be there.
And I'll give you my number and you can call me if you run into any issues.
Okay. Does anybody have any other items of concern to discuss?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to reinforce what you said for our new guys, the importance of this statewide all-day planning session in Concord, if you can possibly go. It's really worthwhile. You'll learn a lot. You won't be sorry. Okay, and the other thing is, Mr. Chairman, or perhaps for the staff, could you put out a list of the new email addresses so we can communicate with the board the new board, as it's presently structured. What?
Let them write it on the back of this piece of paper.
I'd like to get it
We'll be fine. They've got.
electronically.
Well,
Thank
all right,
you.
the staff will do it.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll get an email.
That's all
That's
I
got
have,
everybody,
Mr.
so everybody has that information.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any other items of concern? Let me echo where we started. Welcome, gentlemen. Glad to have you. I think it's great to have some more new and fresh voices and fresh eyes on some projects. So very cool. Thank you guys for volunteering. With that, we're
Minutes.
at approval of minutes of March 20th, 2018.
Chairman, I make a motion we accept the minutes of March 20th, 2018 as printed.
Is there a second? Second by Nelson. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes?
No.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? One abstaining. Dan's abstained. So 501 to approve the minutes. That brings us to item 10 on our agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Might as
Second by
well.
Nelson. He's got all the seconds tonight. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? 600 to adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone, and don't forget to turn your microphones off.